Hi guys, so I'm back with my iced coffee for a nice little casual video, a tag video that I've actually been tagged in. So not just doing it because I fancy it, but because I both fancy it and was tagged in it. I was tagged in this tag by the creator, Amanda from The Naughty Librarian, who I'm sure you've heard me mention recently because I have been binge watching her videos recently, and she created this tag herself. It is a lot of fun. I'm jumping off lots of things that we associate with spring because it's officially, you know, spring, 21st spring equinox. All of a sudden the days are longer than the nights and it is bliss, and I can drink iced coffee without feeling silly. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight in and answer the questions. First things first, all the flowers we remember are blooming again. Pick a book that's a fresh take on a fairy tale. So I've read a lot of fairy tale retellings. I love me a fairy tale retelling. I'm all there for it. But if you ask me to pick one that is a particularly fresh take on an original fairy tale, I think the one that originally jumped to my mind was Ash by Melinda Lowe. So this is a Cinderella retelling, which isn't actually a fairy tale. I've read a ton of retellings of, although I adored the Disney film when I was a little girl. But the reason I picked this one is, well, it's got a lot of unique elements actually. It introduces more of the world of the fae in there, so it's not just like a fairy godmother. There's actually an entire world of fae that Cinderella's mother, before she passed away, was familiar with, and there is a sort of male fae in the role of the fairy godmother, although it's a lot more of a complex relationship. But what particularly makes this fresh is that it is a queer retelling. So within this story, the protagonist, the Cinderella character Ash, will begin a romantic relationship with another woman, and I am constantly looking for both queer fairy tale retellings and queer fantasy, so I was so thrilled when I found out about this one and read it originally, and yeah, so I think if that's something you're looking for, it is definitely worth checking out. Question number 2 is that Cadbury mini eggs are the obvious sweet treat of the season. Completely agree, they are fabulous. In fact, now I really want some. So pick a book that you consider a sweet treat. So in this instance, I have decided to go for Oh My Gods by Alexandra Shepherd. This is such a fun and unique concept. It is very much in the vein of your traditional young adult contemporary teen novels, where our protagonist has moved to a new home. They were living with their grandmother after their mother died and are now living with their father in London. Her mother and father were not together. So she's, you know, living in a new environment, going to a new school, making new friends, got all those things that you have to deal with as a teenager. But on top of that, her family are actually ancient Greek gods. Yes, she is the half-mortal daughter of Zeus. Her siblings include Aphrodite and Apollo, and there is so much chock-a-block fun in this novel, and I think it's such a fresh take on the sort of young adult contemporary genre. It is basically my dream novel from when I was a teenager, but I still equally enjoyed it as an adult, and I think it is something that will just completely wrap you up, absorb you in its story, and put a smile on your face. Question number 3 is inspired by allergies, which naturally have their effect on the senses, including, you know, the eyes. So the idea is to pick a book that made you cry. I genuinely think the book that has made me cry the most when I was reading it was Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates. So this is a non-fiction book all about everyday sexism, so like the layers and levels of sexism experienced throughout society, particularly by women, all the way from like sort of workplace discrimination to, you know, sexual harassment to sexual assault, like all across the board. And it was inspired and based on the Everyday Sexism Project, which is a project that the author Laura Bates started. It is so fascinating, and although individually I think all of these little anecdotes and experiences of sexism that both men and women submit to the project sound horrendous, they also sound a little bit like, yeah, that happens all the time. I've experienced something like that, or I know somebody's experienced something exactly like that. But taken together, it is such an impactful read, and I would listen to this on audiobook and would be on the tube in London, like having to like cover my eyes because I could not stop myself crying in public. That's how incredible it is. Question number 4 is a big one. Spring cleaning. Out with the old, in with the new. Pick a book to unhaul. Okay, so actually this is not as difficult as I thought it was going to be when I first read that. I'm going for Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I enjoyed this book. I actually really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. However, I gave the sequel 3 stars and the third book 2 stars. It's a series that deteriorated for me, and because of that, and probably even before I'd read the sequels, I never intend to reread this. This was a fun read, but I will not reread this, and I feel no like real desire to keep it because I then ended up quite disappointed by how the series progressed. So I enjoyed this. I will remember it for that. I think the film is fantastic as well if you're interested in checking that out. But yeah, doesn't need to be on my shelf. Somebody else can get some fun out of it. Question number 5 is spring break, which is not really a thing that we have here in the UK. I mean, we do have, I suppose we do have like holidays, term times, holidays from schools and things, but I think like the whole concept of spring break and like the going off to celebrate it is much more like American, but still, I watch American TV, I know what spring break is. So it's the perfect time for an adventure. Pick a book involving a road trip. So, have I read many books with road trips in them? This is testing my memory. I may have read others, but the one that immediately springs to mind is Vivian versus the Apocalypse by Katie Coyle, following a teenage girl named Vivian as her parents, amongst many other citizens of America, disappear in what appears to be the rapture. This new religion has taken hold of the country, and suddenly the rapture has struck, and Vivian is left behind. However, she still has her best friend there, and her best friend go off to see if they can find her parents or find out more about what's going on with the world. That was a really fun, enjoyable read, and it did involve a road trip, so there we go. I think the next question is my favourite. Question number 6, it's mating season. It's that time of year in the animal kingdom to make some babies. Pick a book with some smutty delights. I'm going to go for a recent read, which would be Entreat Me by Grace the Draven. This is actually another fairy tale retelling, however this one is definitely an adult fairy tale retelling, but it's brilliant. I adored it. It's one of my favourite fairy tale retellings, and it's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. However, there's so many things I like about this. The premise is slightly different in that 2 women go off to this castle that seems to have some sort of curse upon it. One of them is the younger sister who has fallen in love with this young man, and the other one is her older sister who's actually a widow and is going to chaperone her to make sure she doesn't get up to anything before they are wed. And when they get there, it turns out that the young man that her sister has fallen in love with has an intriguing father that the older sister finds herself exchanging lots of witty banter, and steam develops, and it's a lot of fun. I really like it. Question number 7 is rainbows, which naturally means to pick an LGBTQ plus book with one of those themes. Well, we've already mentioned Ash by Melinda Lowe, but I certainly have more recommendations. But I will pick one for this video, and I will link my LGBTQ plus book recommendations videos down below if you're looking for more. I'm going to go for another non-fiction actually, because why not shake things up, and I'm going to recommend Gender Games by Juno Dawson to those of you who have not read it yet, because it's an absolutely fantastic book that I think everybody could benefit from reading. They should give out this book in schools and in workplaces to adults, because it's brilliant. Juno Dawson is a trans woman, and this book is basically about her experience coming to terms with her gender and her transition, and how it has affected her life and how other people have treated her, but also just a general discussion of sort of like both feminist and LGBTQ plus issues in there, and the importance of supporting one another and fighting for equality, and I think it's brilliant and very accessible for non-fiction. Question number 8 is Spring Awakening, where Amanda says this is one of her all-time favourite musicals, even though it's apparently filled with completely dysfunctional characters. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. But to fulfill this question, you are to pick a book that's also filled with completely dysfunctional characters. Okay, if we're going to go dysfunctional, we'll just go the whole hog and recommend The Dumb House by John Burnside, which is a book I read a few years ago and really highly recommended at the time. Haven't read it since, but I remember being completely absorbed in it. And it is about a man who's obsessed with the innateness of language and whether the soul and language are tied together, whether the soul's a real thing. He has like all these like theories in his head, and he's completely disconnected from others' emotions and has no empathy towards other people, and is willing to do whatever he can to pursue this field of study, as he would consider it, to the point where, and you know this at the beginning of the novel, he eventually has triplets with a young woman who passes away, and he raises those triplets in an experiment in order to prove his theory or get answers to his theory. Number 9 is In Like a Lion, Out Like a Lamb. Pick a book series that didn't get better as it progressed. I've actually already mentioned one of those here. Crazy Rich Asians, but I guess I should pick something else. The other trilogy that immediately springs to mind is one that I read quite a while ago, and it is The Madman's Daughter trilogy by Megan Shepherd. I loved the first book in this. Now, I haven't reread it, so maybe I wouldn't love the first book as much as I did when I read it, but I very much read it at the beginning of my booktube journey, and I like gobbled it up in a day. I couldn't go to sleep because I needed to get to the end. It was definitely, for me, a book that came in that period when I was really getting back into reading, so it was very exciting for me, and I love this book. It's a retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. The next 2 books in the series are also retellings of sort of famous science fiction horror books. So we also have a retelling of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we have a retelling of Frankenstein, and again they just got worse and worse. Like, that last one was terrible. Part of me thinks you could kind of read the first one as a standalone though. And last but not least, fun in the sun, tag some friends. Okay, so I am going to tag Huck from Badger Reads, Olive, Kathy and Lauren from Lauren in the Books. So I will link all of their channels down below, but do this tag. It is a lot of fun. There's a nice mixture of questions which I really enjoyed. I have made progress on my iced coffee, but I'm going to go finish this now whilst I edit. I hope you have enjoyed watching me answer these questions. If you'd like to answer them in the comments down below, please do. If you'd like to talk about the books I mentioned with me in the comments down below, please do. And I'll see you all again next time. Bye!